The BTOA has started the process of its own taxi dispatching license service. The BTOA will advise its members to withdraw subscription services from any dispatch services that host rideshare operations. The BTOA members and family will not be voting for any MP that supports rideshare or any policies introduced by the minister in the coming days, weeks, or months ahead. The BTA will not be voting for PRP or Democratic Society, and an election to be held soon. In a Democratic Society, an election is to be held soon. Further questions, comments can be sent to answers@btoa.bm until we reveal our next step. Thank you very much.
Okay, so we would love to have our questions answered. We believe that since the government has made these proposals, they should have the answers at their fingertips. We expect to receive a response no later than 5 days sent to the same email address used to disseminate our invitation. Change says everything. There are many things that we as Bermudians have been hesitant to do because of family, our culture, and many of the things we were used to. Our views has changed. We are fighting for our lives. Our vehicle license have been devalued, and our business of being self-employed is at risk financially. Regrettably, we have no other recourse, hence the purpose of this press conference. The government has to understand that they cannot create or make amendments to legislation unilaterally. The people of Bermuda has to be included in any decisions, especially in such a small society. We are unique, much different from other island nations that have scalable resources and landmass. Almost everything that comes to Bermuda has to be customized to fit, from vehicles, bridges, hotels, legislation to insurance. One size does not fit all. That's Bermuda. Government's failure to be transparent, failure to listen, failure to be a partner in a democratic society, and continued disenfranchisement of the taxi industry. We have decided to be one, to be our own entity that pools all of our resources in our own environment, becoming a self-contained, issuing that every transaction and every dollar stays within our community. So we will now open up the floor for any questions.
Yes, good morning to your panel. Would you, on the surface of this, it appears to me that maybe the government has put the cart before the horse in this case. Could you explain to me who are the public service vehicle holders? Like, is ride sharing limited to taxi drivers only? I've heard the minister say things about gypsy cabs. You know, what is the proposal as far as you know?
Okay, as far as we know, they're looking to give the first lot of licenses to those gypsy cab drivers to discourage gypsy cab driving. And then they're going to open it up to the other people as well. So far, from what we gather, is that there are 150 permits that are going to be sold at a cost of $1,000 per permit. I don't believe, or we don't believe, that these gypsy cab drivers are willing to pay $1,000 for those permits. But we had asked government over a year ago to give us 150 extra taxi permits that will be seasonal. They will function from April 1st to September the 30th. That request was denied.
Now, the minister has stated that in talks with insurance companies, there are companies on board. I'm hearing from the drivers that no insurance company has stepped up yet. Is that what is in fact the case?
We have done our own investigations and asked different insurance companies if they support rideshare. Most of them haven't even had that discussion with the minister. So as far as we know this far, that none of them are supporting rideshare.
So realistically, this whole plan's not gonna do anything for this tourism season, right?
I can't see it happening, even though I hear that they're trying to push it forward by the end of this month.
That's it for me for now.
Do you have any information about the rideshare app? It's in process, who's behind it, whether it's going out to tender, those kind of questions?
We haven't had any information regarding that from the government. We've asked, but nothing has come forward up to this date.
And can I piggyback on that? The minister took the time out and went to St. George's to speak about rideshare with the Gypsy cab drivers. However, we invited him to this meeting. Mr. Minister, no show. He has not took the time to ask us, how do we feel, or moving forward to work with us, nothing.
How do you feel as an industry that these permits are being made available to the gypsy cabs first? Am I understanding that correctly? So these are people that essentially then operating illegally.
Right.
Do you agree that they should be first in place like that? And do you agree that they should have a permit at all?
Well, from our point of view, what we have witnessed and observed is that a lot of these vehicles are not in the state to be carrying passengers as public service vehicles. It's just like any Joe Blow is going out there and operating gypsy cabs and transporting tourists around the island. We have seen some of the drivers of these vehicles under the influence of alcohol, serving alcoholic beverages from the back of their vehicles to tourists as well as drinking themselves. We know the danger that comes with that, and we have been asking government to investigate. We've also sent pictures and video footage to the Transport Control Department, which nothing has been done since.
Also, to enlighten on that, the gypsy car vehicles are in such disarray that they should be taken off the road immediately in some cases. You also have the dress codes. You also have the issue of them overcharging. They sometimes charge people more than a taxi would. So therein lies another problem.
Would you at least concede on behalf of taxis that gypsy cab drivers fill a void that Bermuda's taxis don't? I don't see too many taxi drivers willing to get up at 3 a.m. to take the senior for dialysis, right? I see certain drivers only cater to certain segments of the community during certain times of the year. I'm sure you will admit that sometimes it's difficult to get a taxi. How much of the rap do you take for that?
Okay, well, yes, we do have prearranged work, and a lot of our drivers do take care of our seniors. I know myself, I do, and there are others. If people fail to plan, then they plan to fail. But if you call and you book a taxi in advance, you have a prearranged taxi, most times that taxi will be there on time or ahead of time to take you where you have to go. But when people don't plan, they call for a taxi through a service that you can't get through, that becomes a problem. So the taxi drivers get the blame, but it's not the taxi driver, it's the dispatch companies.
Okay, I'm just gonna ask the question because it's fairly common knowledge in certain circles that the proponent behind this proposed app for ride sharing is Hitch, which involves the Premier. Now, the Premier has stated that he's not a lead shareholder. Others say that he is. I don't know what the deal is, but what exactly do you understand with regards to Hitch's connection to this whole thing, for the record?
From what I understand, and we have been told, is that Hitch will be the new rideshare central dispatch. So with that being, and not being put up to tender to anyone, we're still trying to get that information. We have asked, but we haven't been told yes or no.
So as far as you know, for the record, what is the Premier's involvement with Hitch? Because some say he's the main guy, others say he isn't. What's the deal?
From what we know, that he has admitted he is a shareholder in Hitch. He hasn't stated publicly, but to us, his position in the Hitch company.
So with him as leader and William Fabre as minister, it would be fair to say or assume that they're in cahoots with each other and not you. Is that correct?
That's correct. Also, when Hitch first came out as a technology company, and they were operating as a dispatch company, under the OBA government, they were shut down. But the minute the minister became when the PLP became the government, they were granted a license. I still have a problem with that. Because how is it that they can be given a license when we know of other companies that have applied for licenses that have a very similar dispatch system, which is probably even better, and they have been denied. They had to actually go join forces with other companies in order for them to have a central dispatch license.
And may I add to that as well? When you read the actual act itself, a technology dispatch service does not fall in line with an actual dispatch, what's required for a dispatching service. You're not able to have your emergency buttons. It's a lot there, which I would be more than happy to provide that document with you, those highlighted sections.
But just to follow up, historically though, you're talking about a Labour government that under Ewart Brown introduced GPS.
Mhm.
That was supposed to revamp the system. When GPS was up and running, when I called for a cab, I would hear, well, the GPS shows there's nothing in your area. It didn't help me in Southampton. So, what does that say for public confidence when it comes to maybe personal agendas and running business for the welfare of the country?
Well, like I said, it has to be a personal agenda as we see it. Simply because just the way it's been done, it just hasn't been fair to other people who have technology apps that can provide you with a good service. They have been denied, but yet Hitch has come along and has been able to do. But what we couldn't figure out also is that under the government policies is that you're supposed to have 50 taxis in order to get, that's a requirement, in order to get a dispatch license. When Hitch didn't have that when they started out. So we were still trying to figure out how did they get this license when they didn't even have 50 cars registered.
How many dispatch companies are there?
So what's happened here of late is that Co-op, Island Taxi, and the Yapper have come together as one company now, as a central dispatch. And then there's the PTA. They have their own company set up as well. And then you have Hitch.
Hitch is a dispatch company.
So Hitch is now a dispatch company.
Do you know what percentage of calls that these companies put out? What's the percentage? How does it work?
Well,
Who gets the brunt of the calls?
so Island Taxi gets a good bit of the calls, but you have people that are using the app and getting Hitch. So Hitch is being advertised globally. And they have their app set up so that when tourists come, they can book their taxis through Hitch, or they use other entities, because we do have some other private enterprises that have, they do dispatching as well. One of the problems is that with that happening, most of them are in zones. So for instance, Hitch, they're a company that basically, if it's busy, they can put 25% on, nothing said. Any other companies don't do that. They don't have that type of setup where they can charge as they want. And Hitch also, at times, charges double, and they have a service fee. So if you call Hitch, there's a service fee added onto that to you. It goes into your bill. That we feel is unfair to any of the public that are taking and using this particular transportation service.
How many of us?
Also,
How
and
was it-
also with every time, if you go through Hitch to order a taxi, and you haven't gotten the text yet, every time after that first time you call Hitch, you get charged. So at the end of the day, going through one of the other dispatch services, you're paying less than what you're going to be paying going through Hitch, because you've got all these additional fees that are coming up with that particular job. And that's the public that's paying that. And that's not coming to the taxi driver, that's all about. Those extra fees are going to the actual owner of Hitch.
And then the driver has to pay a percentage also.
So the driver's fees are usually $59 a month is what they pay. And Hitch takes that off the top. And then you start to make your money after that. But you don't get from each job that you do, they make, let's say they charge $35. So if the meter rate is $30, then you get the 30, they get the 5
On every job.
on every job.
How many of the other dispatch companies has apps?
Island Taxi have just come up with a new app,
Okay.
as well as the BTA. They have an app that's been out for quite a while.
One more question. Are you drivers, are you unified? How come you don't see the togetherness from all of the taxi operators?
One thing I can say is that there are a lot of our drivers who are just very laid back, and a lot of the owners are seniors who are renting out their taxis to a lot of the younger drivers. They all want, but they're not all playing the part. So they expect us to do everything for them, as you find in many other businesses. Other people always wait for somebody else to take the lead role. But we are here to protect our industry, since it's been around since 1946, and we want to make sure that this heritage, is protected going forward for our children and our grandchildren. I mean, at one point, you can use your taxi permit to buy a house, to get a loan, to educate your children, and many people have done that. So to have that taken away now, it hurts after you're paid close to $120,000, $150,000 for a permit and a vehicle. That investment now is being depreciated because of this new rideshare. What the government did say, Mr. Furby did say, we're willing to give you back $60,000 over a period of time, for 3 years. And we said no.
So the value of your business has decreased.
That's what they're saying, it's decreased. But how can you turn around and tell somebody that they're gonna devalue their business?
And if they introduce this ride share at $1,000, that does it. It automatically decreases.
So they have to pay, the road shares have to pay the $1,000.
Right.
Is that it, or do they have to get the public service license vehicle? What extra fees do they have? What's the total amount you need to start an
Well,
operation?
that's in our questions that we're asking. Do they have to pay a license subscription? Will they have a public service vehicle license? Will they have to have their cars in the condition that we have our cars in? Our cars are worldwide known to be the cleanest taxis in the world. We admire our cars as we are not taxi drivers. We are ambassadors for this island. We come from the Bermuda tourism #1 entity. We don't come from this reinsurance and insurance entity. We are real taxi ambassadors that love our island. So we keep that. The regular cars that drive around, taking our tourists, overloaded, overcramped, that's not Bermuda. That's not the Bermuda that we live for.
How much is a public service vehicle license usually?
For the license itself, it's about $100 for a public service vehicle license.
For your
And then
driver's
for
license.
the driver's license.
Just a one-off?
No, it's renewable every
Every year.
every 3 to 5, yeah.
2
years,
years.
2 years.
2 years.
Every 2, yeah. 2
With the
years.
map.
Right, so you have to
With the
provide
board.
that.
you see? Almost pretty much with vetting. Every time when you reapply, you have to be vetted. Now, it was a circulation going around the other day that a private car was taken, asking someone to pay $100 to get in their car. They would give them $100 to get in their car. Does a taxi driver do that? Will a taxi driver get you to your destination safe? Yes. Will this person that's asking someone to give them $100, that I will give you $100, get you to your place safe? I don't think so.
Can you provide a bit more information? So you say you're creating an app for yourselves. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that?
We will be able to provide additional information on that later on. At this time, we really don't want to comment on it, but we are actively looking as, we are actively starting to put things in place to have our own app as part of becoming our own authority.
Okay,
And this executive endeavors to unite the members.
okay, can I ask you about that? Because this year marks 40 years I've been in this business, from UBP, PLP, OBA, up to now, consistently, and so join to the test to this. I've heard transport ministers say, the problem with you guys is you need to come together as one. I hear you say that you're gonna be the one, but just how united are you? Because you have this dispatcher, that dispatcher, now you got hitched with political connections and you're still all over here.
But remember, this new dispatching is new thanks to our government.
How do you stand, who do you represent? Do you have 100% taxi people behind you? Or are you unified, or are you still over here? Because I'm hearing island taxi, this one, that one. Yeah, I'm not hearing the unity. Can you speak to that?
Okay, our drivers and our members are looking, they would like for us to have our own central dispatch. They don't see why we should pay other entities to make money off our business. So this way, if we have our own, we can have the money circulating amongst us. It'll be an equal share for everyone, drivers, owners, and they would be a complete buy-in. This way here, we don't have to go to outside entities for a central dispatch. We can have it all built within, because we want to take our industry back to where it used to be, where we had our own gas station, where we had our own garage, and we brought in our own parts and stuff like that. Because these are some of the issues that we're having right now, getting parts, bringing in our vehicles. We're still waiting on government to give us the okay to bring in brand new vehicles. They may be a little bit bigger in size, but they can amend that. They're gonna make an amendment. So what we're doing now, we're purchasing second-hand vehicles. Not all the time you know what you're getting when you purchase a second-hand vehicle. Where the law states that when it comes to vehicles, the buses, they should be brand new. The limousine should be brand new, and the AT should be brand new. But they have allowed second-hand vehicles to come in without making any amendments. They have made amendments for the taxes and the taxes only, but we haven't seen anything for those other vehicles.
And on top of that, if we become an authority with our own dispatch, we're keeping that pool of money within the BTOA. And we're looking to take the whole organization to another level, whereby we're able to provide assistance with the employment tax, looking to see how we can incorporate within the BTOA insurance as a pool, because we know the insurance fees will come down if we pool the resources together. And so we're looking, yes, historically, it hasn't been that way.
You'll admit though, this is 2024.
Yeah.
You're late.
No, it's never too late.
Okay, here's
It's
my.
never too late to have goals, it's never too late to have visions, and it's never too late to make change. And so what we want to do is get our members to understand that we want to take this to the business level.
Okay. Here's my last question, right? And if the minister was here, I would ask him. But I want to know, as representatives of this industry, you know that the law says that taxis are supposed to be on the road a certain amount of time. You drive by TCB, you see 6-seaters parked all day. You drive by Westgate, you even drive by police headquarters. I'm not calling out anybody, it's no secret. A lot of these cars are parked all day, but they should be working. What do the inspectors do, and what do you say to drivers who feel like, oh, I only work from 10 to 2 and that's it? Because this is why we can't get a cab.
Exactly. And we encourage drivers. This is a failure on the public, on TCD, because they are not policing this.
So what do the inspectors do? I see them all having fancy lunches.
Nothing, because that's what they've been instructed to do. One of the days we used to have the Jimmy Torts and all the other rest of them that were out there that made sure that those vehicles were on the road. Today, we don't have that. The enforcement has really gone out the window. You know, we don't have the enforcement like we had back then. You can see it for yourself, the way drivers are dressing. The dress code is not being adhered to. That is not something that the VTOA can police. We don't have the authority to do that. We see it.
But
we
with no
advise.
enforcement,
And we
what's
can
the point?
encourage.
But I mean, you know, this proposal is not gonna eliminate gypsy drivers. You know, I keep an ongoing list of taxi drivers and gypsy drivers.
Mhm.
I take the first one available,
Mhm.
right? People don't really care what your issues are, they wanna move, and they wanna move. And for years, we've been stuck.
Yes, and this is why we're trying now desperately to get our drivers unified and to be out there. One of the issues that we're facing now is that if a guy who is working for me to do the other shift, they might drive for 8 hours, and yet my second driver drives for 8 hours. Now that this whole rideshare has come into play, he's gonna say to me, hey, you keep your taxi, I'm gonna drive my private car. I can make money off my private car, and I don't have to pay out anything. So this has become a problem because this is what is happening now. I can't drive 16 hours a day. It's unhealthy, and drivers that try to do that, they end up in the cemetery. Because all health issues that they have, blood clotting and things like that, there's no other public service that asks you to drive or to be out there for 16 hours a day. other than it.
I don't think it's just for one driver. I mean, you're an owner of a cab.
Right.
You can get someone else to drive your cab. I don't think it's realistic anyone's going to do 60
And
hours
that's
a
why
day.
he
And that's
said,
what I-
with the ride share, his driver would say, oh, hell no, and I have to rent your car. I can drive my own car. So hence his car, either he has to drive 16 hours or his car sits while he rests. Remember, we are required safety. When we drive, we cannot be halfway asleep. Okay, we need to rest, we need to stay healthy also. So we need two drivers to do the 16 hours. Now, instead of them doing the TTPs, which is the actual taxis, they want to implement these cars. Why did you ignore our TTP request? Why are you all of a sudden just enforcing these private cars? We have one car per family. Now, he's my husband. I want to go out and drive the car. He's stuck at home all night. He's got the children stuck at home all night while I'm out there driving or vice versa. He can't go anywhere without the car. You see,
Would you suppose that taxi drivers are allowed to have more vehicles per household?
we're asking for the temporary permits
Right.
to replace, or you never even gave us the opportunity with the TTPs. You just want to introduce these cars. I don't see it working with our families either.
When we talk
And
about
then the other part about it is, giving the taxi drivers the opportunity to have those other permits allows us to also train, guide, and be support for the new ones coming on. That's another way of looking at it as well.
And also, look at this, look at the unemployment in Bermuda. Who can take and have no education and make money to support their family, as you know that the inflation is high? So by hiring somebody that foresight fell through the cracks and has improved their life, got through the vetting, and they can have a job, hey, it looks better in the taxi also as the ambassador, as a hustler in a car.
So John has a question.
Can I ask you a question? I hear what you're saying, you represent one operator.
Yes.
There are 3 others, am I correct?
I just
Mhm.
don't
It's the dispatch.
There are 3 other
Dispatch,
dispatchers.
yes.
Yes.
Do you know what the other dispatchers are saying? You're saying what you're saying.
Mhm.
Are they saying the same thing at different venues? Or are there different views from the different dispatchers?
Now, remember too, sir, this is new, and we are new. But this system, this ride share thing is still brand new. The dispatch
That's what I
service,
asked.
right, but the dispatch service is still brand new. And I will say, we haven't had the opportunity to really dive in.
The
and
dispatch
see.
service has been around for a long time,
Mhm.
Yes,
forever.
yes,
Are
single.
you all singing the same tune about what's going on in this area?
I do
As far as
believe
that,
that.
as
Right.
yes, as
Have you
far as,
tried to get everybody together?
yes.
Have you had a meeting in which all 3 of you, 4 of you sit around the table and work out the issues that will affect all of you?
Not as yet.
Not as yet, this is something that
So
we
why
have.
would you be having this discussion
Mhm.
when you haven't really come together and said, can we have a common representation as to what is it that we need that's going to affect us so that we can have a collective statement to government, to the country?
Well, technically, we've been forced to be in this situation because this new central dispatch and this ride share. So right now, like I said, this is the early stages of all of our steps and improvements as we do. But this is brand
Under
new.
this administration, we've been in office just over a month,
Right.
and under this administration here, this is something that we have on our calendar to do, hopefully within the next week.
I
To
don't-
meet with all the different dispatch companies, which we tried to do it before, but we want to do it now this time. Meet with all the dispatch companies and see what's their take on it, because we know that Bermuda Island Taxi, Co-op, and Yapa that have come together, they basically have come together to pull drivers away and give them another alternative away from using Hitch.
Well, it seems to me as though, first of all, I concur that if you are in government, and I was faced with the same thing, you should have a conversation.
Right.
I mean, this just not all. I fired ministers who had those positions. I just blew it up. One of them was Ralph Marshall, who was Minister for Works and Engineering, and he was also doing Bermuda College, the plans for Bermuda College. And when I talked to him about it, he saw nothing wrong with it, doing the plans, and also letting out the contract for Bermuda College construction. And I simply said, it's unacceptable behavior. He wouldn't listen to me. And I just said, sorry, you better go.
Right.
Yeah, and this is one of the issues.
I did it for 3 ministers over the course of 13 and a half years. What I want to make to you is, we're supposed to sit at a higher order and have high ethics. The second question I'd like to ask you is, has the minister organized a meeting with all the operators?
No.
No.
Actually, they have been trying to have a meeting with the minister, who has failed to meet with them. And this is why these guys have come together.
So I understand that the minister is quite a congenial person, maybe he is to me, maybe he is to individual. I believe that he looks at this as a very serious problem. This problem's going on too long, too many people suffer. I was educated because my father had a cab, so this was 1947, 48,
Right.
and they went from horse and buggy to cabs, my father. So I'm very familiar with the issue, the whole industry itself.
Right.
And it's been a hodgepodge all along. But it seems to me with modern technology, with technology that can now look at build a diagram, build a matrix of the transport industry, whether it's buses, minibuses, big buses, taxis, and then maybe alternative forms of smaller transportation, that we should be looking at a computerized system by which it's open to the public. If the cab owners or taxi drivers have to get benefits because they're being impacted by it, it's all done by a computer, and then those benefits accrue to the appropriate people. That's how corporations, in fact, that's what my proposal is in all aspects of government. If I'm running in the next election, we get some other people to run, but if we take charge, our job will be to use high levels of technology to to bring Bermuda into the 21st century. You're talking about something that's 40, 50 years old, and you're still trying to invent it as though somehow the other it's relevant to the contemporary time. You won't succeed.
Right.
And all you do is keep spinning wheels, spinning wheels, spinning wheels. So, but the real answer would be if everybody was participating, everybody was getting benefits. Didn't matter whether it was small operators or big operators, proportionate benefits and so forth. Then we would then begin to deal with Bermuda transport problems. But we can't deal with them on a higgly-piggly, the best person has the argument, or there's no argument, it's by edict from government down to operators. It just won't work. It never has in any. That's why you can look at a newspaper. You see the successful companies. They have the board of directors, they have their shareholders, they have their employees, they have their service providers. It's all defined in an orderly fashion. And then the benefits accrue to the shareholders. You are the shareholders who are not getting the benefits as you should get the benefits. So you can incorporate something that does the same thing. The government would have to change the legislation to reflect that. I mean, that's what governments are about. Is if you can change the legislation to adversely affect somebody, why can't you change legislation to positively affect people? And that's the proposal I'm putting forward as an independent member, and others that I propose to put up for election, because we're going to run this place like a corporation, not like a nursing home.
And you're absolutely right, because let's face it, the legislation is dated 1951.
There you go.
And so therefore, it needs to be updated, changed, but it needs to have those who are in the industry that wants to take the business where it needs to go to be involved in those changes. And right now, unfortunately, the executive, even the prior executive of the BTOA, were never allowed to be involved in the decision making, which causes a problem. Who would know the issues than those who are out there and seeing what's going on? Now, we as taxi drivers, we go down to Horseshoe Bay. We know that when that ferry gets down St. George's, there's a need for transportation. Why are the minibuses all parked down there, the guys are sitting up there talking, when they should be constantly moving? We're constantly moving. And so if they're constantly moving and if they're spread out, taking up the slack, which is why the minibuses came into existence, taking up the slack of where the taxis cannot, because they're servicing the locals, the hotels, the airport, and many other areas, the corporate. Why are you there? You should be where the need is. There's supply and demand. And it may be, if you look at the whole structure,
You have to do those.
you may not even need the 150 extra.
Wow.
But there's a weakness there whereby it's a deficiency. Yes, we know that. And we know that we have made our mistakes too. Okay, we've come short. But we're trying to look at every area and see how we can improve. And we've brainstormed and had suggestions that we need to talk to the dispatching companies. We also need to talk to the minibuses. But we don't even know if the minibuses are as organized to have.
It's not your job. To you, it's trying to do somebody else's job. This is a national public transportation problem. It's not an individual or dispatching problem. And that's where we go wrong. We keep thinking somehow or the other, this is us as individuals' responsibility. It's Bermuda's responsibility to provide the appropriate services that's required for Bermuda to function.
Right.
And therefore, the institution of functionality should rest with the government
Yes.
to set up the appropriate process. If you run the airline industry like you run the Bermuda taxi industry, the airplanes be falling out of the air all the time.
It's true.
Yeah.
But look what happens. The FAA says you must do this, you must do that. And then IATA says you can only sell these tickets at this rate because of this, and this is fair structure, right? And all that comes under a federal regulatory authority.
Yes.
What we're trying to do is piecemeal something, so I hear your meeting this morning, it's not going anywhere. You're beating your heads against a stone wall because you don't have somebody sitting down and saying to you and saying to the system, this is what we'd like to do. We want you to fit into this, and I don't care whether you are this dispatcher or this dispatcher or this dispatcher. Eventually what you'll end up with is one dispatcher, you'll get benefits.
Right.
But you don't need to have all these dispatchers. A client arrives in Bermuda, gets off. I want to call a cab. Do I call this dispatcher, that dispatcher?
Yes.
I mean, we should be able to call one place,
Right.
one number, and guess what?
Full service.
With app now, like you know, with Uber, you will know where that cab is when they say that it's coming for you. You'll know when it's going to arrive at your place, and you can watch it as it's on its way coming.
Yes.
And we have
It's
this app.
not rocket science to do this on a national plan because we're so small. We're only
Exactly.
20 square miles, 500 square miles of road, and 500 miles of road, and 250 miles of by roads. So that's 750 miles of roads. It's not like somebody having to go a long distance. So I'm afraid, I'm glad I'm here this morning. I only got to notice, about 10:15, 10:20. I was curious as to, because I've heard so much about this, but you're knocking your head against a stone wall because you're all trying to do this little bit here. It won't work because by the time you get through your opinion, somebody else's opinion, and somebody else's opinion, this is a national problem
Yes.
that you're trying to solve on a local basis. You can't do it. I'm sorry to tell you that. And then the national problem can be solved with technology, not with this idea of hokey pokey telephones that don't work and
Right.
people who don't answer and this and that. I mean, it's not rocket science, it's simple. And with AI coming in, good God, you can even watch the person that's in the cab for safety
Right.
reasons.
Yes.
Then you can now, because you've got this, then you can say to the insurance company, here's your package. This is what you need to charge because everybody's gonna be buying into this here. Here's the health plan for, just like when I run my corporation, I have a health plan for all of my employees, same as anybody else. Here's what it is. And by the way, you'll get a slip if you are letting you know what your value is outside of your cab ownership, what your value is in terms of how the system is operating and giving you some benefits that it receives. Simple. So my suggestion is that we go back to government and request a national plan that they're responsible for. This is not your responsibility. And as long as you try to fix the national plan, you can't. You don't have the authority. They make the laws. We've elected them to make the laws, to produce ethical, functioning processes. And they make the laws to do that. And they've got to go back now and make those laws, take that responsibility, which is why they were elected. If not, what the hell they were elected for?
Very good. Sorry.
Okay, so the government has made quite, is working on legislation and it's legislation that you don't agree with, so they're already working on a plan. You don't feel that you agree with it, you don't feel it's beneficial for you or the industry. These issues have been going on for years, decades.
Right.
Have you guys talked about unionizing or organizing officially in a capacity?
Well, see, that's what the secretary was speaking about. We are, like I said, brand new. We are in the process of making these changes and doing what you were saying. And we have an AI tech right here. You see, so we are
But
in.
government should be doing it, and you
Well,
should assist
yes.
government rather than you
But-
doing it.
but
the
The question
government
is if you're looking to
Yes.
unionize.
But remember, every time when we try to get with the minister, even in the old executive, the minister never should. So we're looking forward to that opportunity, one-on-one with the minister.
Well, the first thing you
If
should
he
do
could
is
give
meet
us a
with,
date.
first thing you should do is meet with the other dispatchers.
Yes.
That's the first, and then
Yes.
you, as a group of dispatchers, make representation to the government
Yes.
and saying you'd like a coordinated effort to bring the transportation system up to date. And it's not a difficult job to do.
No.
Every business you see operating in town is exactly what they do. Every business in town. You ask a business to take and operate without that type of function, it will, and monetary authority keeps an eye on
Mm-hmm.
the international business.
Yes.
The registered companies keeps an eye on the local companies, then you have the monetary authority overseeing things. But they're all done under an umbrella of continuity
Yes.
and functionality.
Yes.
And they hire lawyers and everybody else to get the job done. And it's all technology now. And now with AI, like I said, don't underestimate AI.
No.
It is the thing of the future.
Yes.
And pretty soon we'll drive your cabs for you.
Susan Jackson,
Did
there we
the
go.
powers of
Yes.
down?
Get
Yes.
used to the
Can I
idea.
ask a question about unionization?
So, we are basically, this body is actually functioning as a union, as a representative, as opposed to, over a year ago, yes, we went to the Bermuda Industrial Union, and we sat with them, and they said they can't represent a union unless all the members were willing to do it. A lot of our members don't want to pay $30 a year to become a member of the BTOA. We know the challenges that it's going to be for them to pay out $300 plus a year to become a union member. And this is one of the things that we're trying to bring these guys together to show them the importance.
Take 6 months and give them a free membership and ask the community, some of these international companies that are enjoying our benefits to Bermuda, ask them to subsidize the union for 6 months while you get your affairs straightened out.
It's a good idea.
Susan Jackson.
Good morning. I have a couple of questions, but I would like to preface by saying that if the government comes up with a ride-sharing act, then it's not going to meet the needs of what is a 60-year-old form of legislation, the Motor Car Act, and the regulations that match that. And I believe that that's the foundation. So one of my questions is, and I've asked this in the past, is has the government, the Minister of Transport, sat down with all of the stakeholders in transport to look at and review and update our legislation and our regulations?
No.
I'm going to get that as a no. So my second question, just changing ever so slightly, which I believe the government should be able to help you with, and that is creating an electronic or digital landscape that is reliable on our roads. And so my question is, do you find that with things like the digital app Hitch, that there is enough reliability of internet service by any of the taxis to actually have that reliability? And of course, the internet also ties into electronic payments and whether taxi drivers are even in a place where they can accept credit cards reliably over a good digital platform.
Okay, there is Yapra. Yapra has been around for a while. They've been trying to get a dispatch license. This is a Bermudian who has looked at the transportation industry. He's set up his own app with the whole map of the island, so everything is there. He has a driver's app. He also has a passenger app. So he's been trying to get government to grant him a license. The problem with that was because it was better than the Hitch, because it can give you everything that the passenger will require, and the passenger could see what taxis are located in Hamilton, how many, who was the first to arrive. So if I was in Hamilton Princess Yard, they can see that my taxi arrived first. So they will ping me for a job. And that job could be just across the street, or it could be at the hotel itself. What they would do, if I reject that job, it'll bounce to the next taxi behind me. So this app was given a lot of thought. It was everything basically that one would need to help in the transportation industry, because it puts then you don't have to have a phone if you don't need to. It can do phone service, it can do electronically. For those people that have their cell phones with the app on it, it has GPS location. You can see when that taxi is moving, know how long it's going to take to get to you. If you wanna pay by credit card, you can pay by credit card. If you wanna pay by cash, then you can pay by cash. But what happens a lot with that app, because I do use it, is that when people get in the car, they say, okay, well, I wanna pay by credit card. At the end of the journey, they say, oh, I have enough money, I'm just gonna go here and pay by cash. You can revert and do that. With Hitch, you can. So once you get on a Hitch ride, you pay cash, you pay by credit card and credit card only. With the other app that's just been created for the digital dispatch, it operates similarly, but you cannot, I believe you cannot revert back to cash. So you go credit card all the way, but with Yappa, you can go either way. So at the end of the journey, before I cash off or sign out on a credit card, I can ask the passenger, do you still want to use the card, or do you want to go back to using cash? Most times they say credit card, but the tourists, that's the way they're traveling now. They want to know that they have a credit card taxi available to go from point A to point B. And I found a lot of the locals now also like to use the debit card to catch taxi rides. So that's a good service that's being offered right now.
You do have this swipe on, the technology?
We have tap,
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
but
also,
you see, it will only be available for certain taxis who want to take it up. I'm talking about a national plan. Everybody, you get a drive, you get a taxi license. Part of your taxi license is you are part of a national thing, as opposed to this localized here and a localized there. But we just got to get in the 21st century.
right.
exactly.
Now, also, there are two operators that try to implement new meters that had everything on it. Our TCD is giving them the hardest time, so we can't come up to the times per se, right?
They should
When
get
the
more
buses
time.
go down, we are the people that have to cart these people. Buses go down, every ticket is out. So now, if we had the TTPs, we got extra vehicles that will be able to allow us to continue with the cruise ships, continue with the airports, continue with the public, that these TTPs could take up, and your buses want to do 80 cancellations a day.
But you are the public. You are the owners. You have your investment.
Yes,
You have your responsibility to provide transportation. The government's job is to have an overall process by which facilitates what you need to do to provide that transportation. But you're still going right on back to, well, this can do this app, and this can do this app.
But we need a
You
national
need
plan.
a national plan, and it's not a complicated thing to do.
We only have a few minutes, we only have a few minutes left on this.
Mr. Aaron's been trying to.
Hi, thanks everybody. So on behalf of the Free Democratic Movement, we would like to say that we heard and understand your concerns. So just a quick overview here. I've been in every one of your taxes at some point, right? So I'm not speaking as just a member of the Free Democratic Movement. I'm speaking from a consumer perspective, and also somebody who enjoys the free markets, right? I do agree with Mrs. Warner with the idea that that there shouldn't be any sort of government interference, and it shouldn't be any. It should never ever get to the point where we have to question if our premier is going to benefit from this plan, right? It should have never got there. In the FDM, we believe in clean hands and pure hearts, right? That's our approach for everything that we do, along with a free market, classical liberalist approach. During this, there were some questions asked. One of them was regarding internet and taxes. That came from Mrs. Jackson over there. With me in general, the very first project that I instituted at Digicel, right, was a project to give taxi drivers internet and taxes, right? We started the project in 2018, and then Kevin Backett picked it up in 2022, 2021. It didn't really get where it should have been. So I'm saying all this to say that I have had an extreme interest in the way that the taxi industry runs and operates for a long time. I've had like a financial benefit from it as well through Digicel. So I have a general idea of where you guys are coming from here. The difference in our positions on this between, I guess, our party and Search One and maybe the OBA is that we don't see the need for this to be centralized. That there needs to be more decentralization. That every taxi driver and every taxi dispatch company should be masters of their own destiny, right? The government should not pick and choose winners, right? They shouldn't pick who wins and who loses, right? So it is our understanding, just to go a little bit further, sorry, we have every Monday we do an information session. It's available on Zoom. You can get it on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram as well. In our information session, we hosted a few members of your organization, and we discussed our positions when it came to the taxi industry. Because the gentleman did reach out to us to ask us to talk to him about it, and he invited a few people in. So first of all, the taxi meter price is what you call an artificial price, right? It wasn't set by you, the owners of the business, and myself, the consumer. So we haven't agreed on what a price is. It's what the government sets in place. Also, as a consumer, I look at it as why do I pay the same to get into somebody's taxi that has air conditioning and Wi-Fi, and they might take card and crypto, but they're saying that they I pay the same again to another taxi that's beat down, smells bad, and the driver's not that great, right? As a consumer, I should have more choice, right? And as a business owner, you should have more choice as well. So we don't agree with the idea of centralization here, right? We want decentralization with less regulations so that it makes it easier for you guys to carry out doing the business that you do best, right? I'm not a taxi driver. I have no idea what it takes to get on those roads, and for 18 hours or whatever crazy amount of hours you're out there for driving up and down. I have no idea. I don't understand what toll that takes on my vehicle, on your vehicles. I don't understand those things, right? So the best way for us to come up with a plan that works is through you guys. It isn't through the government, because they don't know, right? They have no idea. If they knew, we wouldn't be in this situation right now, right? So I guess the most important thing is that you listen to me. You're heard. And I don't think which is where I would agree with Sir doing this. I don't think that this is going to get you guys heard. I think that you got to talk in the election booth. I don't think that it's going to get in a position where they're going to listen. I don't think that if you looked at the history of the PLP over the last 7 years or so, they're not going to listen to what you're saying. They don't really care about your position. It's money to be made for them, right?
Yes.
So at this point, I'm just going to put that out there and say, like, we at the FDM, we've listened. We've already started putting in place a course of actions so that we can deal with this from a better position, right? I have a list of questions right there. You've given us 5 days. We'll be back to you before then with a full, variety of answers to this, right? I do agree that it does have to be a national issue, but we have to be careful about centralizing everything. We have to be careful of giving the government control over everything that you guys do, right? Because the government doesn't do best, right? It's the people that do it that do. So at the end of the day, like I said, on behalf of the FDM, we heard you guys, and we're going to do everything in our power to make this work out for you.
Thank you.
And that's one of the things that we have said to the minister is let us all come together.
Right, yeah.
Let us come together so that you can hear and understand. Because I told them they've never driven a taxi. So how could you ever sit down and use people, as you say, you've talked to stakeholders. These stakeholders that you've talked to have never been behind the steering wheel of a taxi. They've never driven. Talk to the people that are in the know, that are in the industry, so that we can all come together for one common good for the country and provide a professional service. You're going to bring in people from Cayman to sit down with the transport minister about his plan, but you haven't even discussed it with the people in the know here. So we had to rebut and send something back to these people and say, he has never met with us, the Bermuda Taxi Owners and Operators Association. So how can he speak on something that he knows nothing about? When they were doing the white paper on transportation, we asked them the same thing. You're doing a white paper, but how can you do a white paper when you haven't consulted the people the stakeholders that are right here? And he refuses to give it to us. He refuses. Up to today, we still don't know what's in that white paper. We've asked. He says, oh, if you get it, you're going to run to the media. Well, if you don't tell us what we need to know, this is why we come to the media, to see if we can get them to put some pressure on you to give the answers that we need. Because at the end of the day, this is where we want to be. We want to make sure that, like Sir John said, we have a national plan so that we can be the eye of other countries and they can see what transportation needs.
Unity.
And unity in our community as far as all the dispatch companies coming together, and we build a buy-in as one. Right now, the separate entities, it's not a buy-in.
One last question.
Also, okay, I would just like to say this here. We, the taxi operators and owners, do not have a concession from the government. We don't have rebates from the government. That leaves us to go out and suss out discounts for drivers. Like, we're trying to get, we have obtained discounts for service and mechanics, discount for tires. You see what I mean? So we have to try to do everything on our own because the government seems to be fighting against us, making their own money, making their own, don't know what they're doing sort of type thing against us.
Since they've been so generous recently, they've given everybody $1,500. I hope they give every taxi driver.
Okay, but they don't give us anything to operate those kinds of vehicles.
One last question. I haven't heard
Yes.
you all talk about the challenges you said with the meters that all taxi drivers have been going through. Has that been rectified, or is it still an issue?
That has been rectified.
Very good.
The problem was, and again, it kept going back to the vendor. It wasn't a vendor issue. The problem is that they were using the vendor as an excuse, because how could you give one vendor percentages and it turns out to be correct on the meter, and you give another vendor who has the lion's share of the meters a totally different percentage? So this whole thing, it seemed like it was a setup just to, so that they can say, okay, well, we could produce our own meter and we can have these guys leave here and come over
So
here.
now the government now has, or TCD has the ability to regulate and to program those meters. Taking, from what I understand, taking some of the knowledge from the man that's been in business for 40 years, literally taking his business, correct?
Yes, so, and speaking with Mr. Eve and the son,
Yep.
they had their machines, the programmers,
Ordered.
sent in. They got in the hands of Transport Control Department,
Mhm.
who have basically pushed Mr. Eve to the side, using his tools to program our meters.
Because we went to TCD 4 times to get our meters done. The 3 times that we went, Mr. Eve done them. The 4th time, Mr. Eve was ousted.
So they
And
put Mr. E out of
TCD
business, am I correct?
Pretty
That's
much,
basically what they did.
pretty much.
Wow.
Yeah. So
And Mr. Senior.
And I've been driving for 40 years, and Mr. Eve done my meters when I first started.
And I must say, he has been the guy that you can call midnight, after midnight if you're having an issue, holidays, Christmas. He has been there for this, for the taxis all along. And for them to do what he did, I think was really cool and callous, because to me, it looks criminal, because how could you have something sent to you when you know that's not your tools? So you have taken this man's tools,
It all starts at the top,
and it starts at the
and
top.
it filters down. But
Exactly.
we need everything, like previous your point, we need to filter from the bottom up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I would like to close this meeting by saying thank you so much. Thank you for accepting our invite, and we would love to hear from you. Any questions you feel, email us and we will do our best.
Email address? Email
Email
address for those that are
address.
watching that might have some concerns?
info@btoa.bm. So we have set up our website, we also have an Instagram page, so we're trying to get things going so that people can come on and they can share their
Facebook,
concerns, Facebook, everything, so that at least we can hear back from you, because we need the feedback. We know some of the issues that we're having, we know with the drivers, and this is the thing is, when we have we see what you see a lot of times with drivers not doing what their part, we have a problem with that. The enforcement is what's happening. We cannot get the TCD to enforce to get these guys up to scratch. We
Thank
see
you
it
much.
every day.
We were told it was new officers, but we haven't seen them.
Thank you very much.